Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Minnesota Vikings offseason is about to get absolutely insane, and we've got the insider scoop that's going to blow your mind. Buckle up, Vikings fans, because what you're about to hear could completely reshape the future of this franchise. We're talking blockbuster trades, quarterback controversies, and decisions that could make or break the next decade of Minnesota football. The rumor mill is absolutely exploding right now, and at the center of it all is one of the most electrifying quarterbacks in the NFL. That's right, we're talking about Lamar Jackson, the former MVP, who suddenly found himself at the center of some serious drama in Baltimore. And guess who just got connected to him in a major way? Your Minnesota Vikings. Mike Sando of The Athletic just dropped a massive connection between the Vikings and Lamar Jackson. And the comparison he made should have every Vikings fan sitting up and paying attention. He compared this potential situation to when Luka Doncic got traded from Dallas to the Lakers. Remember all those whispers about Dallas not loving Luka's conditioning, his drinking habits, his lifestyle choices? Well, now similar smoke is starting to billow out of Baltimore regarding their superstar quarterback. Mike Preston of the Baltimore Sun recently published an article that's got Ravens fans in an absolute frenzy. Now, some Baltimore faithful are questioning Preston's credibility, trying to dismiss this as nothing more than off-season noise. But here's the thing, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And right now, Baltimore is looking like a five-alarm blaze. The whispers are getting louder, the rumors are getting juicier, and the Vikings are right there in the mix. So let's address the elephant in the room, the question that's got every Vikings fan either celebrating or panicking right now. Would Minnesota actually trade for Lamar Jackson? The answer from those in the know is a resounding, emphatic, absolutely yes. And here's why this makes so much sense that it's almost scary. The Vikings are in a unique position right now. They're not a rebuilding team scraping the bottom of the barrel. They're not asking a new quarterback to come in and be some kind of savior who transforms a dumpster fire into a contender overnight. Minnesota is middle of the pack, hanging right there in that frustrating zone where they're good enough to compete but not quite elite enough to break through. They've got most of the pieces. They've got the talent. They've got the infrastructure. What they desperately need is that one elite quarterback to put them over the top. Imagine Lamar Jackson throwing to Justin Jefferson. Picture that dynamic dual-threat quarterback working with one of the best receiving weapons in the entire NFL. Add in all the other offensive firepower Minnesota has assembled. Combine that with Brian Flores and that defense, and suddenly you're not just talking about a playoff team. You're talking about a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But here's where it gets really interesting. What would Minnesota actually have to give up to land a player of Lamar's caliber? We're talking serious assets here. Multiple first-round picks, absolutely on the table. Marcus Davenport, he could be part of the package. Jordan Addison, the promising young receiver, he might have to go too. The front office would need to do whatever it takes to land a generational talent like Lamar Jackson. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of aggressive move championship teams make. And it's not just Lamar Jackson on the Vikings' radar. Joe Burrow, the other elite AFC North quarterback, could also potentially be available if things continue to deteriorate in Cincinnati. The Vikings are going to be connected to every big-name quarterback this offseason, and fans need to prepare themselves for a wild ride of rumors, speculation, and heart-stopping possibilities. Now, some fans are already groaning about all these rumors, calling them nothing but smoke and hot air. But here's the reality check everyone needs. The Vikings are going to be a big rumor team this offseason, whether you like it or not. It should make for absolutely incredible content, drama-filled discussions, and endless debate among the fan base. Love it or hate it, Minnesota is going to be at the center of quarterback speculation for months. Speaking of Vikings legends, let's talk Mount Rushmore for a second. If Minnesota actually had a Mount Rushmore carved somewhere up in those frozen tundras, who would be on it? This is where generational perspectives really come into play. For someone born in 1999 who grew up watching modern Vikings football, the Mount Rushmore probably looks something like this. Adrian Peterson, the all-time great running back who defined an era. Randy Moss, even if you didn't get to experience his full prime, you can't deny his legendary status. Justin Jefferson, who's already cemented himself as one of the all-time greats despite his young age, and Harrison Smith, the defensive anchor who's been the heart and soul of that secondary for over a decade. But the older generation of Vikings fans probably has a completely different list. They're thinking about the Purple People Eaters, about John Randall, about players from eras that defined Minnesota football in completely different ways. That's the beauty of sports history. Every generation has their heroes, their moments, their legends that shaped how they see their team. Now let's shift gears and talk about the elephant in the room that has some fans absolutely terrified. J.J. McCarthy's health. A $5 super chat question asked whether McCarthy can actually stay healthy, and honestly, it's a legitimate concern that deserves a serious answer. Looking at his injury history is genuinely scary. Torn meniscus, high ankle sprain, fractured throwing hand, concussion. This kid has been absolutely battered, and he hasn't even really started his NFL career yet. So can he stay healthy? The honest answer is there's nothing in his track record that gives anyone confidence right now. But here's the other side of that coin. Just because he's been injury-prone early doesn't mean he'll be injury-prone throughout his entire career. As he matures, as he adds more weight to his frame, as he learns how to protect himself better in the NFL, there's every reason to believe he can become more durable. Maybe that's wishful thinking, maybe it's blind optimism, but championship teams are built on belief, and the Vikings have to believe McCarthy can develop into a franchise quarterback. Here's a wild hypothetical that got floated. What if Minnesota actually fired Kevin O'Connell and promoted Brian Flores to head coach? Who would they bring in as offensive coordinator to match Flores' physical, defensive-minded style? The top name that comes to mind is Brian DeBole, who's proven he can develop young quarterbacks. Josh McCown is another intriguing possibility, someone who's been in the head coaching rumor cycle and could bring veteran wisdom. But the real dark horse candidate, Grant Udinsky, currently with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he gets tons of credit as their offensive coordinator, even though he's not the play caller. Imagine a Brian Flores, Grant Udinsky, and possibly a trade scenario where Kevin O'Connell gets dealt for draft picks. That would completely reshape the entire organization's identity. Let's talk special teams for a minute, because it's an underrated part of football that can absolutely make or break seasons. Are the Vikings a top 3 special teams unit in the league? Probably not. Top 10? Maybe. Will Reichard and Ryan Wright have been absolutely spectacular this season, giving Minnesota elite kicking and punting, but there have also been some brutal turnovers that have cost them dearly. Miles Price has been electric as a returner with his explosive plays, but he puts the ball on the deck way too much. As a returner, consistency might actually be more valuable than occasionally breaking off huge returns if it means never fumbling. The Vikings need to figure out if Price can shore up that ball security, because his roster spot depends on becoming more reliable. One player who's really been missed is Keeney Nwangwu. Remember watching him return kicks? The guy was absolutely awesome, never fumbled, had explosive ability, and provided consistent value. Getting him back healthy would be huge for this special teams unit moving forward. Now let's get negative for a minute, because even with New Year's resolutions to stay positive about this team, we have to address the lowlights. What's been the least favorite memory from this season? There are so many brutal options to choose from. The Seattle Seahawks game might take the cake. Minnesota went into Seattle and got absolutely shut out for the first time since 2007. Sam Darnold didn't even play particularly well, but the Seahawks just walked into an easy victory. Kevin O'Connell's coaching was horrible that game. Justin Jefferson went catchless for the first 3.5 quarters. That's almost impossible to do with a receiver of his caliber. The second half collapse against Green Bay was another nightmare. The Bears' loss was embarrassing. This season has had more lowlights than a Vikings fan wants to remember, and it's raised some serious questions about whether this team is actually as well coached as everyone thought. Here's the real question heading into the offseason. Does Minnesota start J.J. McCarthy or bring in a veteran? The answer is actually pretty simple. The Vikings have exactly 2 options. Option 1, go big game hunting. Chase Joe Burrow, chase Lamar Jackson. Land one of those elite franchise quarterbacks who can immediately make you a Super Bowl contender. But if you can't go big game hunting, If those guys aren't actually available, then option 2 is simple. Ride it out with J.J. McCarthy. Here's why that second option makes more sense than you might think. Even if you could sign someone like Baker Mayfield, who's absolutely a better quarterback than McCarthy right now, you'd still be better off riding with the young guy. If McCarthy starts and he's terrible, you probably end up with a high draft pick and can reset next year. You get valuable information about whether he's your guy or not. Sure, there's risk. Justin Jefferson might want out if the team is terrible. That's a real consideration. But what the Vikings absolutely cannot do is play this middle-of-the-road garbage they've been playing for years. No more Kirk Cousins-type moves where you're just good enough to be mediocre but not bad enough to get premium draft position. No more Mason Rudolph-type signings that keep you stuck in quarterback purgatory. If the Vikings view guys like that as their quarterback solution this offseason, fans should be absolutely furious. It's either go big or go home, and Minnesota needs to make that choice decisively. And speaking of Sam Darnold, let's talk about the ultimate storyline. Thoughts on Darnold playing for the number 1 seed? Here's a potentially controversial take. Fans should be rooting hard for Sam Darnold in the playoffs. Imagine if he smacks San Francisco, goes to the Super Bowl, and hoists the Lombardi Trophy. It would absolutely suck to watch, but it would also be the ultimate middle finger to the Vikings organization. You don't have an offseason where you let a guy who threw 35 touchdowns walk out the door without consequences. The football gods would be delivering some poetic justice. Darnold hasn't been great lately. He's got 8 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in his last several games, so clearly he's not the guy who lit up the NFL world back in September. But championship runs are about getting hot at the right time, and if Darnold can recapture that early season magic, watch out. Though if he plays for the number 1 seed, loses, and then loses in the first round of the playoffs again, that would be absolutely heartbreaking for him. The ultimate cruel twist of fate. The Justin Jefferson situation is fascinating and frustrating in equal measure. How can the Vikings get the ball to their superstar receiver and actually score more than 1 touchdown? It's funny because if you've been watching closely over the last couple months, they've been trying to force feed him in the red zone like a fish desperately needs water. The Cowboys game was the perfect example. They were trying everything to get Jefferson a touchdown. He dropped one. He scored another that got called back for illegal motion. The effort is there, but the results haven't followed. How do you fix it? Watch what the Rams do with Puka Nacua. They line him up in the slot, line him up outside, get creative with formations and play calling. Kevin O'Connell knows how to get Jefferson the football. The lack of production is less about scheme and more about quarterback play. When your signal caller isn't executing at a high level, even the best receivers in the world will struggle. The penalty issues this season have been absolutely maddening. The Vikings have looked undisciplined, which is something nobody expected to say about a Kevin O'Connell coached team. Heading into this season, O'Connell would have ranked maybe 3rd among NFL head coaches behind only Andy Reid and Sean McDermott. But this year, he's been lapped by guys like DeMeco Ryans, Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, even Liam Cohen. Some people might take Liam Cohen over him now. That's a massive fall from grace, and it's raised legitimate questions about whether O'Connell is actually the long-term answer in Minnesota. The team needs more discipline, more physical play, better fundamentals. These are coaching issues that have to be addressed immediately. The Vikings offseason is setting up to be one of the most dramatic and consequential in franchise history. Whether they land a superstar like Lamar Jackson, roll the dice with J.J. McCarthy, or chart some completely unexpected course, one thing is absolutely certain. This team cannot afford to play it safe anymore. The middle-of-the-road approach has gotten them nowhere. It's time to make bold moves, take calculated risks, and go all in on building a championship contender. The pieces are there. The talent is there. What Minnesota needs now is the courage to make the big swing that could change everything. So what's it going to be, Vikings faithful? Are you ready for your team to go big game hunting and potentially give up multiple first-round picks for Lamar Jackson? Are you ready to trust J.J. McCarthy's development despite his injury concerns? Are you ready for the wildest offseason of rumors, speculation, and potential blockbuster moves in recent memory? Because ready or not, it's coming, and it's going to be absolutely insane. The next few months will define the direction of this franchise for years to come. Championships aren't won by playing it safe. They're won by teams willing to bet big on talent, make aggressive moves, and commit fully to a vision of greatness. The Minnesota Vikings stand at a crossroads, and the path they choose will determine whether they remain perpetual playoff contenders who fall short, or whether they finally break through and bring that elusive Super Bowl championship home to the frozen North. If you made it this far, hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments about whether the Vikings should trade for Lamar Jackson or ride with J.J. McCarthy, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the breaking news this offseason. This Viking saga is just getting started, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss a single second of what's about to go down. Skull fights. Vikings Nation. Let's get ready for the craziest offseason
Hey everyone,
of our
I'm
lives.
working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.